Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we're going to get an inside look at the working of the Kingston government with Common Council Majority Leader Tom Hoffay. First though, we're talking newspapers, editorials, Facebook, Twitter, and blogs with Ivan Lajara, the life editor for Daily Freeman. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. So how did you get into newspapers? What prompted you to say, I'm going to go work for a newspaper?
Well, I was always kind of like a writer. I always wanted to be in newspapers. And newspapers, like print newspapers, is kind of like what drove me to join. You know, I wanted to write. I wanted to see my name printed on the paper, change the world and all that thing. You know, all those things that you want to do when you're young. And I was still in college when I applied to the Freeman job. And I was just like, you know, copy editor, so I got to learn all the chops of the basic newspapering, which was, you know, doing the world page and doing the police page and doing that little paste up and putting paper through wax. And I stopped the presses a couple times.
You did?
Yes, I never yelled stop the presses though. I always wanted that moment, stop the presses! But it's so loud when it's running that you have to go like this. You know, you can't, you say something and they're like, what?
No one hears you, right, of course. So were you in college for journalism at the time?
Yes. I went to Ulster County Community College, and then I transferred to SUNY New Paltz, and then I finished my degree there. And I was at the Oracle there, which is the campus newspaper there, for a little while before I got the job here.
As copy editor, so what were you looking for? Making sure that the commas were in the right place, and that
yes, I mean you. As the name implies, you edit copy. I mean that's kind of like the basic premise, and it's very, you know, it's not glorious. You don't win any awards. You know, you basically write headlines. You edit the copy. You make sure that the commas are placed in the right place, and there's the periods, and you know, you proof the pages. You lay out pages. We're a small paper, so we also lay out the pages, you know, paginate is what we call it. You know, then we proof the pages, which is like usually somebody else's page, where you give the page another look to make sure that there are no typos. And sure enough, there's going to be a typo the next day.
Right, of course, indeed. So from that, you have now graduated to the editor of the Life section for the Freeman. What is the editorial perspective of the Life section?
Well, when I took over the Life section, I was moved from news to the Life section because it was basically an opening and we needed to fill the position. So it was an acting position, just kind of like in the meantime to see what I was going to do with it. And I decided to kind of like spice it up a bit, and I felt that there was too much wire copy. I don't mind Dear Abby, that's, you know, fine. Everybody likes Dear Abby. Can't mess with that. But, you know, I felt that needed more local content. So we started doing like food pages every week, you know, with recipes featuring local restaurants or chefs. We even feature a hospital chef at one point, and oxtail soup. I still remember that for some reason.
They were making that in a hospital?
Yes.
Wow.
And so we started that, and then we started doing like a book page of local, but these were all local authors. So we started doing an author feature and then just spice it up, doing a series on the last Sunday of every month. We started that about 6 years ago. And we change it every year, lest it gets stale. But it's been, you know, it's been working out pretty successfully, and you know, steadily but surely, we started being recognized for the work that we've been doing on it, on the Life section.
In the age of digital journalism, you also write a blog for the Daily Freeman. What are the topics that you get to choose from? What do you get to write about? Anything you want?
Pretty much, which is great, actually. I was told, it was suggested to me repeatedly to kind of like pick something and go with that. You know, pick a topic, go with that. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. I'm all over the place. You know, and the description of the blog on the Freeman main site says that I talk about, you know, politics and cats and language, and that I shouldn't. And because of that, it's gotten you know, some recognition and is pretty well liked around the area.
Great. Let's talk about that when we come back.
Sure.
You're watching Kingston Now. More with Ivan Lajara of the Daily Freeman when we return. Welcome back to Kingston Now, and joining us again is Ivan Lajara of the Daily Freeman. Now, Yvonne, you have a very sharp writing style. I don't want to say smart aleck, but you have a very strong perspective. You like to sort of take things to task for being sort of ridiculous or, you know, in that vein. Did you develop that as a writing style, or were you always kind of that way as growing up?
Well, we had that in my family, but it was very informal, not so much in the writing sense. And I developed that pretty early in school when I was writing pieces. But it was more of a side project, and it still kind of is. Because I'm trained professionally just to write, you know, this Man Bites Dog, and I've written those stories. I mean, I've written straight news stories, and sometimes I don't put my byline. And with straight news stories, you know, it's the basic journalistic tenets: inverted pyramid, the lead goes on top, and all that. So you can't really put bias or anything like that on it. But yes, I do have like a perspective on things. It started kind of like with the blog, developing the voice, and what worked and what didn't. Apparently, complaining a lot doesn't work. So I try to find the absurd and in daily life in the community, and try to make fun of that. Try to bring perspective to that, you know, just to showcase how absurd it is, and then maybe we can step back and say, you know what, yeah, it is a bit absurd.
This is the age of digital media, and in a moment I want to talk about what that means for the future of newspapers. But for instance, you have editorials that you occasionally write about things, and you wrote one back in late January, I think, about the legislative redistricting in New York State, and you used, instead of using words, you used animation. You put up maps on the Freeman, so there was no, you didn't write an editorial. All you did was show how ridiculous the new districts would be by cartoon drawing over them. Could you have done that in the past in traditional newspaper?
Well, in traditional newspaper, and if you even go further back, you know, when there was an explosion, you had to tell people that there was an explosion and that the ball of fire was red, because you didn't even have color in newspapers. And then you developed color, and everybody thought it was the greatest thing in the world, because I can show you the red that I was telling you about. I'm still going to tell you about it in the print edition. And with this thing, it actually was almost the same way. You know, there's one offering in print, but it's a completely different offering on the website, online, on our digital offerings, even on Twitter. This started actually as a process. We put the maps out. Actually, it was the Freeman straight news story puts the maps out, and I saw the maps, and they were gerrymandered so badly that I just threw the maps out like one by one and said, what does this look like? And we threw it on Twitter and on my Facebook page. And then people were saying, it looks like a pterodactyl. It looks like a baby kicking.
Looks like a shark.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then I started drawing doodles on the maps. And that's how that came about.
It's pretty terrific and really creative. And again, takes me back to that question is, so what is the future of newspapers? Here in Kingston, the Daily Freeman actually shut down that press that you used to stop occasionally and move their printing up north to Troy. And that seems to be a trend in newspapers. There's consolidation, and then the aspect of, well, what does the internet mean for the future of the print edition? And do you guys struggle with this at the Freeman? Do you talk about it?
It's a challenge, yeah. Oh, we talked about it a lot. I mean, the idea, and this is a company-wide idea, it's not just the Freeman, is to diminish the the production process, to spend less time doing production and more time doing journalism, which is what we all kind of went into business to do. One of the jokes that we have in the Freeman and other properties is like, I didn't go to journalism school to do a comics page, you know, which is a lot of times what some of us are doing every now and then. And so the idea, this is corporate-wide, is to shift those production tasks to a centralized location, be production or, I don't know, business or all that other stuff that I have no idea. And then just focus on doing journalism, so that the copy editors, instead of doing wire copy or national things or stuff like that, all of a sudden you free that person and then you can have them do local. So at the end, it's exciting in the sense that it's probably going to end up being more journalism done locally, which is very exciting for us.
Well, your publisher, Ira Fussfeld, seems to have that really forward view about what newspapers can become. He's heard on radio locally, often on WAMC, with Alan Chartock talking about the media and the future of it and the way stories are covered. So that must give you some motivation and be good for morale that your owner is in that camp.
It is very exciting. I mean, he's allowed us, he's given us the freedom to experiment and just do what we need to do to get the things done.
What's the future for Ivan Lajara? What is it? A book? Is it your own blog that stands separate, or are you a newspaper man for life?
I'm a journalist for life. What medium that journalism is going to be shown is debate. It's up for debate. So I'm very excited. You know, I don't think print is going to disappear anytime soon. But I also don't think that, you know, who knows, 5 years from now we're going to be joking about the web as if, you know, if it was something from long ago. Right. So future is exciting. Journalism is here to stay, and I'm very glad that that's the case. And we'll see where that takes us.
Well, I've enjoyed your writing and its perspective, and I'm glad to finally meet you in person. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
This is Kingston Now. Next, we'll get an inside look at the way Kingston government runs with Common Council Majority Leader Tom Hoffay. Stay tuned. You're watching Kingston Now, and right now we're going to explore how the city's governing process works, or doesn't, with Tom Hoffay, Common Council Majority Leader and representative of the 2nd Ward. Hi, Tom.
How are you, Jim?
So you smiled when I said, or doesn't.
Or doesn't. Well, you know. We take a lot of criticism, you know?
Yeah, sure. So how does the mayor work with the Common Council? I mean, does he have veto powers? Can he make something go through that the Common Council doesn't want to happen? How does that work?
There's a dynamic tension inherent between the office of mayor and the Common Council. I mean, the mayor is not only the day-to-day administrator in the city, but he's also the representative, the voice and the face of the city on many issues, and represents the city as a totality. The council represents 9 wards, and the members are elected from 9 different sections of the city. And they represent the policy and financial end of government. And so there is a tension sometimes between programs the mayor would like to propose and the financial implications that the council sees. The mayor proposes a budget. The council has to approve that budget or amend it. So yes, there's that tension, and the mayor can certainly veto legislation, and we can override.
Now we have, you're a Democrat, you're the majority.
Yes, I am.
You're the majority leader this time out for the Common Council.
Right.
How long have the Democrats been sort of in control of the Common Council?
It's pretty much been a Democratic council. Probably, I can think of 1-2 year time period when it wasn't, but pretty much a Democratic council for the last 40 years.
And we have a Democratic mayor. We've had one for probably about 20 years, and so that overlaps.
Kingston is a Democratic city. The registration is almost 2-to-1 Democratic. I think that's a legacy of the many factories that had been in Kingston and the strength of the labor movement in the city. I think Kingston's pretty working class, blue collar, labor involvement, and the Democratic Party was a natural fit.
So you might not know that if you read the comments after the news stories in the Daily Freeman.
The comments are, of course, come from anywhere, and they also reflect the viewpoints of people who have some time on their hands and maybe are not happy with government or their own lives or any number of things.
Yeah, that's a topic I didn't cover with Ivan Lajara a few minutes ago.
I'm a great admirer of Yvonne, and I think that he has really demonstrated very, very accurately and factually to city government the place for social media in government reaching out and communicating to the people who live in the city. And I've tried to do that myself, but we've passed policy in the Common Council that really wants the city departments to use social media to communicate.
Sure.
But we've tried to adapt to that. And I think we're not resistive to adaptation. You have to take one step at a time sometimes, and we can be seen as slow with it, but there's been a lot of acceptance of new demographics in Kingston, the arts community, the digital community, 721 Broadway. All of these things are very important to the future, and most of the people in the Common Council recognize that.
So how is the new mayor doing? You guys have been working together for just a few months now. How is he doing?
I think the new mayor is doing a great job, and there's a lot more to come.
Terrific. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. This is Kingston Now, and more with Common Council member Tom Hoffay when we return. Welcome back to Kingston Now, and with us once again is Tom Hoffay, the majority leader of the Kingston Common Council. And Tom, what are the major issues facing Kingston, do you think?
Well, you know, I want to just stay with the idea of how the mayor is doing for a while,
Sure, of course.
and say that you know, the success of Mayor Gallo is the success of the city of Kingston. So it's very important. We want this mayor to be successful. We want to support this mayor in his efforts to do some reordering of city policies and to correct situations that may have come up in the city in the past. So we're behind those efforts at reconfiguring some of city departments, for example. And those are going to be important milestones as we go forward. I think the most important thing, however, that facing the city of Kingston continues to be the financial situation. And it's something that the Common Council has, over the last successive councils that I've been a member of, the council has addressed that, and addressed it strongly to try and contain costs, trying to put policies in place to make sure that you're getting as much effort out of your government as the money you put into it, and to try and strengthen our resources and control the weaknesses, the financial weaknesses in government. And I think the council's been pretty successful at doing that.
Now you're the chairman of the Finance and Development Committee.
Yes.
And so in that capacity, how much fat is there to trim? It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to work with in the budget right now.
Well, there isn't. And, you know, I've been chair for just a few months now. Prior to that, Charlie Landy, who had been the alderman from the 3rd Ward, was the chair for a long time and did a lot of the heavy lifting there. This was a big concern of Mayor Jim Satile and his administration to try and reduce the expenses in city government. I think he was very successful. And so as a result of that, you know, you're really down to personnel costs. Personnel costs are more than 3/4 of the city budget. So unless you're going to, you know, remove personnel costs, there's a small percentage that you can cut from city government. I don't think we're at that point. I think we're at the point of looking for new sources of revenue. I think we're at the point of trying to make sure that we are getting the maximum amount of service from the government that we pay for. I think those are the areas.
You represent Ward 2 in the city of Kingston. There are 9 wards. You're also on the committee to redraw the lines of the wards.
I am.
Why are we doing that?
This is well, it's
happened recently.
It's a 10-year. It's a 10-year. It's a once every 10-year occurrence. And even though the census was 2010, the last time the lines were drawn was in 2003. So we're up to do this by next year. And it's a process that we approach, I certainly approach with great trepidation, because no matter where you look at the lines being redone, it's a subject of great controversy. I think we have to go very slowly through this and be very careful. The Ulster County Legislature really divided the city of Kingston into 3 equal parts. And those are the 3 legislative districts that represent Kingston on the county legislature. And within each of those districts are 3 wards. So at least in theory, the reapportionment should be relatively simple, in that you should just have to adjust those 3 wards within the districts. But there are a lot of questions that remain. We're just starting the process.
As a politician, I'm sure people stop you on the street and talk to you about issues. They know that you're their representative for the ward. But as a politician, you also sometimes are witness to some of the suspicion that the public has for city government. And in the past year, we've had issues with the police department, with Detective Matthews, and some issues with the fire department. And that sort of can support the public's suspicion of city government. What do you do about that? How do you handle that?
Well, you approach it with a great deal of humility. You have to go look at it and start with a keen understanding and appreciation of human nature, that put in the right set of circumstances, a lot of people will make shortcuts. And they will do it even though they are going to end up defeating their own purposes and causing harm to their family, to their department, to the city as a whole. And I think it's very important that we not prejudge situations and let them work their way through the court system. And it's sad when that happens. There are so many dedicated workers that I have seen in city government, people who give way above and beyond what they are required to do to make the Common Council work, to make the mayor's office function, to provide us with excellent police and fire protection in the city of Kingston, that it really hurts when a situation such as this comes to light and becomes very public. It hurts that it happens, but it's human nature that we're not dealing with perfect human beings.
And the cost often extends beyond the amount of money that was stolen, or in that instance with Detective Matthews, it goes to
Credibility
for the rest of the police
Exactly.
department. Tom, thanks for stopping by today. You're a terrific guest.
My pleasure.
That's it for this week's show. Our thanks to Yvonne Lajara, the life editor for the Daily Freeman. You can read his life blog at dailyfreeman.com, and you can find him on Facebook. Thanks also to Tom Hoffay of the Kingston Common Council. You can check them out online at kingston-ny.gov. Remember, all of our shows are now archived on our YouTube channel, and you can find the link on our Facebook page. You can also suggest topics for future shows on Facebook. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.